Hey, I'm going to get out of the way as fast as I can. However, I'm taking advantage of this special opportunity for me personally. We've been so excited to have Steve Young to be here with us, to be part of this. For me, everybody knows he's kind of a Hall of Fame quarterback, 49ers, and probably most of you know, but I know that I believe he's a Hall of Fame human as well, and leader, and what he's done off the field has been important. It's inspired me. And, you know, way back when, and this is part of the fun for me, I'm getting recruited and get drafted by the Kansas City Royals, kind of like not sure what's coming next. And out of nowhere, Steve reaches out to me. I don't even know how he found my phone number. He calls me, we get together, he offers support, and that's just kind of like one of many examples of who I think Steve is. He's gone on to build just an exceptional world-class private equity firm, and that's inspired me as we're trying to build our own investment firm. And then finally, most importantly, you know, he's written this book that he's excited to talk to everybody about that for me has been nothing short of life-changing. Each of you in your gift bag has this book called The Law of Love. And I've probably handed it out or encouraged about 60 different people on a one-on-one basis. My wife first brought it to me. I've given it to my brother-in-law, on and on and on. It's just an exceptional book. So I just want to thank Steve. It's helped me to think more about how to approach people with more healing, more love in my heart, try to be less transactional. And anyway, so I want to thank him for writing it, thank him for coming.
I'm not sure you should just speak on it. I think you're on a good roll there.
All right.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You're a good man.
All right, man.
Appreciate you. I do want to thank Casey and Dave and Kurt. They have a lot of energy around this, and I I told my wife, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to a business conference," and you know, I've done that before. And she goes, "What are you going to speak on?" I'm like, "Well, they asked me to speak on the law of love." She's like, "Really? Isn't that weird?" And actually, once you understand, of course it's not weird. It's kind of a universal truth. And because you guys have come to be inspired, I hope, and to find ways to think about things that can be more useful. I think I'm going to describe how I got started in business. Our firm is HGGC, and its roots. I started with Bob Gay as a fellow that started Bain Capital and left to start this. And as we chatted about, and Greg Benson and Rich Lawson and myself and others, Les Brown and others, we came together on a fundamental principle that we've watched in private equity, that the hornet's nest of relationships that are built off of attribution. As people sought attribution, credit, that's how the business is forged. That's its fundamental value. Private equity is forged on credit. It's my relationship. I brought the deal. I transacted it. I lead it. And in that, the next conversation around value in the firm, that is the currency of control. That's the currency of power. And so when your fundamental principle is attribution or credit, it has its own ends. And we watched that. I watched that in a private equity firm that I was before. I saw in others, and I was like, we don't want to do that. And the thoughts were, well, how do you do? That's the only thing that drives private equity. We got to do it. It's got to be attribution. No, we don't want to do it. What if we, as a group of people coming together to form this, enterprise, what if we all just committed all of our relationships and put them in the middle so that we can't get credit? What if we just created an environment and socialized it amongst each other so that we couldn't seek credit from each other? And that's how we started it. And then we said how we're going to pay people, how we're going to figure out how to give them reviews, is that we're going to not ever give any credit for attribution. We're going to give credit for excellence. And so That's how we forged our private equity firm, HGGC. And so since then, 15 years later, we have developed this partner-centric enterprise that constantly is being challenged from within. Because if you're not careful, if you don't push the rock uphill constantly to this higher level of thinking around credit and abundance, we end back at the mean. We end up back where attribution leads, and where that leads generally is a zero-sum game and a completely transactional relationship. Could be profitable, could be highly profitable, could be more profitable. But in the end, what are we going to be about? And in that effort, I think that there is a lesson as we seek to compensate for excellence, not attribution. And I use this in my home. I use this in my marriage. This is a concept that you want to be able to hold competing principles. One is excellence. Excellence by its nature is very transactional. Like I'm great. In fact, I'm greater than you. Or I'm not as great as you. So what you need to hold in concert with excellence is kindness. And so in our firm, I talk a lot about how we need to be excellent and kind. And people chuckle, I think, behind my back, they whisper. In fact, I know that they whisper about that. But here's a for-profit enterprise, fundamentally about transaction, finding and trying to find a way away from transaction. And it's a constant battle. It's a constant battle inside and out. And part of my book is really recognizing that it's scientifically proven that it's going to be a constant battle. Because we're in an environment with gravity and opposition and entropy. I don't know if you had entropy, which proves the second law of thermodynamics that proves that everything rots or decays or dies. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, yep, it's happening. Especially lately, I was like, who is that guy in the mirror? Like, what the frick is going on? And but it's and what do we know about this existence we have here? Is you eat what you kill, right? We got to go out and by the sweat of our brow. Like it's where we are. It makes sense. I always say that Moses went up the mountain twice. The first time he brought down the law of love, and the people of Israel was like, I'm ready for that one. So they sent him back up the mountain again. And what did God say to him? Hey, I want a relationship. And so I'll give you something that's more relational to your experience. And that's what he came down with the Book of Commandments. Book of things to do, right? Here's the book of things to do. And if you do them, I'll bless you. And so we started this relationship of transaction. And so much of our business lives, I just described this idea of excellence versus attribution, so much of our spiritual lives are born out of those trips up the mountain. And how much do we have a relationship with the people next to us in our home, across the street, or strangers down the road, or with heaven? The relationship remains to be decided and defined. And so much of our definition has been around transaction. Because that's what we know. That's what's in front of us. That's how I'm asked to live. And it makes sense to us. It makes sense to me that if I'd be asked to do something, then I would get rewarded. Of course. But inevitably, there is a higher, holier work to do in business, in sports, in families, on the road. The other day I was in the left-hand lane. I was late. My wife had asked me to do something, and I hate to disappoint her because I do it a lot. And I'm like, I can't, I gotta get, and the person in front of me at the green light, the light turned green, the arrow, and just they were on their phone or, looking at the flowers. I don't know what's going on. It didn't move, And I thought to myself, ugh! And what do I want to do? hit the horn, man. We got to go. And I thought to myself, I've been trying to not be as transactional even in these brief encounters so that I can kind of see someone who is like me many times at the light and been distracted or thinking about something else or daydreaming, and how not hurtful, but I don't know, awkward when I get honked at. Like it makes me feel guilty, and I feel, I don't know. And then the relationship as we drive on together, as the person honked at me, I'm looking at them, we have this awkwardness, right? It's like an awkward life that we lead. And I don't want that to be. So what do I do? Just sit there? What if he just sat there the whole time? Through 3 lights, And that's the challenge. What I'm describing to you is an ongoing, and I use the idea of pushing a rock uphill, and I don't know, it's so dumb, but it's not, because if you don't push the rock uphill, what happens? It's going to go to the bottom, and that's where we end up, in attribution, in transaction. I mean, the ends of the transactional road are fundamentalism or perfectionism, or like those are the places that those roads lead to. And they're not places of abundance. They're not places of perpetuity. And as I age, the one thing that I so desire is perpetuity. Like, I want to be here. My kids, I started later, so I have a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 22-year-old. And as I look at that, I say to myself, I want to see them into the future. And so the idea of being around and being in an abundant experience has really kind of led me to, how do I live regardless of the fact that I'm not going to be here forever? What's the point? And I share with you a story, and you might have heard it before, and I apologize, but I'm using a different context. When I played in the NFL, one of my greatest, not enemies, but what do you call defensive football players? Yeah, clearly not the smartest group of people in the world, but by the things that they said to me on the field, I didn't understand. It seemed like a different language. And mother something, I couldn't remember what it was. But something about my mom. But one of the greatest that ever played was a guy named Reggie White. Reggie was 6'8", 350. And when I say that size of a human being, he was not overweight. He was muscle and strength, and he could run. And so it's just, I don't know if you've ever seen LeBron James up front, up close, if you've ever been near him within 10 feet, you just go, oh my gosh, that's the largest human I've ever seen in my life. And athletic. Like, he runs like he's 6 foot, 180. That's what Reggie White was like at 6'8", 350. I think he's probably 400. The strength was amazing. He's the greatest defensive football player in the history of the game. And whenever I played Reggie, we had to talk about it all week. Like, what are we going to do? How do we make sure that we have enough people? Where's the 12th person we need to try to take care and help? And that was always the conversation, because Reggie was the kind of guy that could literally at the line of scrimmage just take people and throw them, and move them around, and then I was down on the ground. And the other thing about Reggie is Reggie was loud. He was all of that size in how he played. As I would drop back to pass, he would rush me, and you could hear him. Like he was just loud. And so as I drop back to pass, I would hear him, and I could hear him getting closer. Because you knew it was proximity, like, ah! And as he hit, and then inevitably he would hit me. And as he hit me, he'd grab, like he was just a mammoth human. He'd grab me, and then he would turn back and fall backwards and let me fall on top. And then he wouldn't let go. He kind of held me. And then he'd say, Steve, how you doing? Still remember, Reggie passed away of sleep apnea. So tragic, about 15 years ago. But just me saying this story makes me remember him very well. And he'd say, Steve, how you doing? I'm like, not so good. we had made friends as rookies. Well, actually, as our seniors in college, we went to a all-star game together. He was University of Tennessee, Baptist preacher. Here's this Mormon kid from, I guess LDI. I don't know how you say that because back then I was Mormon, now I'm LDS. But so I don't know how to refer to that. So in the past, but and so we were just two peas in a pod. And my dad helped him find an agent because my dad's a lawyer, and he'd help me, and so they got to be friends. And so he'd have me, and then a few plays later, he'd grab me again and pull me over on the back, and he'd like, "How's your dad?" You know? And I'd be like, "Reggie, like, let's talk after the game. I don't want to talk to you anymore," you know, because I felt like he was trying to get to me so he could, because he hadn't seen me in a while, you know, to catch up. He was sacking me to catch up. But the reason why I tell you this story is that you've got to understand what it was like to be on the football field in front of 80,000 people. You've got to understand the adrenaline and the money that's paid to the individuals to get a job done. So the intensity would always grow as the game went on, especially as it was more important. And so as that intensity and all of the, you know, all of the emotion that comes into that, 99% of the people I played against, even if I was friendly with them, forgot that. It's too much. The adrenaline was too much. The moment was too much. It's just human beings can't be in that adrenaline-filled, competitive environment and remember something else. And I totally understood it. His life was a part of it too. But Reggie somehow was able to be in this incredibly intense environment and could still have in his mind that that's my friend. It didn't change his job. I still went down. Still beat me. You know what I mean? But he did it as a friend. And I think that that's the athleticism. If we're going to live in a world where the rock runs down to the bottom of the hill, and we're going to try to continually, push it up to something higher and holier, that we would understand why it's so taxing. Because by definition, we're being asked to do things that are not of this world. There is a higher, holier work to do, and it's called love. And it's selfless love. By its nature and definition, it has to be without self. And that is so difficult. I live in this entropic world, and it's so hard to leave myself and all of the transactions that I have going in every direction, especially with heaven, because I have a super profitable relationship with heaven, because I have done a lot of good. And because of that, I've got a lot of credit. And so I feel super good about that. So don't disrupt me in my efforts. So many times in my Sunday school class, people would say to me as I describe this, and they say, "Brother Young, I do not appreciate what you're talking about. You know, I'm 87 years old, and I've been at this a long time, and I've been doing good. And so what you're saying is disruptive, and I don't want to lose the sense of sacredness of what I've been doing." And I would say back, you lose nothing that's sacred that you've done in the name of another's healing, another's goodness, another's health, your own health or well-being. It's all sacred. What I'm describing is something that now the rock won't run downhill. It'll actually theoretically run uphill with you. But it's not of here. And so I think about Reggie and that ability to be athletic in the environment that we live, that we can be humans and we can seek abundance. We can find that place where every conversation, even rancorous ones. In my book, I talk about an experience a woman had in an acrimonious divorce. And and it was acrimonious. Like, it was arguing, and it was every time they got together, it was devolved, blaming, and it was just terrible, as she described it. And she hated it. It taxed her. She's like, how did I get here? How did my life end up like this? And why am I so torn and beaten and battered? I mean, she said she started to seek inspiration in some way to like make it not so painful. And as she sought that, it didn't change it. As the divorce went on and they said the final thing to the lawyers when they were going to, kind of sign everything. And she's like, "I've got to find a way to make some peace." And as she walked into this settlement, she describes an experience she had where she saw through the glass of the lawyer's office her now soon-to-be ex-husband. And she was overcome. The way she described it, I was transfigured. All of a sudden, something weird happened. And I saw him through the glass. And suddenly I saw him and loved him in a way that I had never thought of before. And in this feeling that I had, I wept. And so I left the building to go, whatever this was happening to me, I went outside and kind of gathered myself. And she chuckles and it went away. And I went in and we signed and we've been divorced for many, many years. But it changed how I saw him. It changed me. And it changed me in a way that made me able to now find peace. And I could start to heal. And it's in that healing and in that ironic cycle of seeking a healing spirit for someone else that opens the door for the healing to come to you in a more fruitful way. People always say self-help. Well, Steve, what about all the self-help books and all the good? There is a lot of good and a lot of self-help out there for a purpose. And you can author that and you can get better. But I'm describing a way that you can find the full measure of your perpetual spirit. I believe we have a durable spirit inside of us. And to find the full measure of that durable spirit inside of us, we need to do this selfless route. And so I appreciate Reggie. I appreciate showing me the athleticism to be a friend and a competitor. We can do this. We can do hard things. Ronnie Lott's another guy that I played with for many years. He was Hall of Fame safety for the 49ers. And he taught me a lot of important lessons along this path, ones that he didn't even realize. I've gone back to him and tried to explain to him, "Hey, Ronnie, I'm writing this book called The Law of Love, and you were fundamental in trying to get me along this path." He said, "I was?" Because, he was a brutal, tough guy. Like, what do you mean? Like, he wasn't sure that even, I don't know if I want to be in your book. And I explained to him what happened to me is I watched him in an experience that he had with Phil Simms, who was a quarterback for the Giants. And we were at the last game of the season, and we didn't have to win it. We'd won so many games that we didn't have to play to win because it didn't matter whether we won or lost in this last game. But the New York Giants, needed us to win so they can get in the playoffs. But then, that didn't happen. And there's a famous statement that the quarterback for the Giants said that was very derogatory towards us. And Ronnie was inflamed, I remember. And he remembered until the next year we played the Giants. And when you warm up before a game in the NFL, and probably in football in general, you start at the 50 and you both go that way. And so you inevitably cross paths with each other in this warm-up period at the 50. And as we started to warm up, Ronnie went right for Phil and straight over to him. And usually in these heightened, intense situations, things get dicey, right? Everyone kind of, everyone kind of wrestles and it's weird. But everyone saw Ronnie go for him, and no one moved. They knew that this was a different kind of an experience, and he was like this, and Ronnie was, and Phil was just taking it all in, and then that was it, separated. And later I asked Ronnie, what? Why were you? I know you're upset with him, but what did you say? He said, Steve, he doesn't understand that this is sacred space. When you come on this field, it is a sacred experience because there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And if we don't respect growing out of both sides of that experience, we have left on the table fruits that can make us better. And when somebody disrespects that, we need to stop it. And in this team, if you've noticed, and it was true, we didn't deride the other team. We weren't trash talkers. We weren't. 49ers for 20 years, we weren't that way. And I think it was because of the spirit that Ronnie brought to the competition. Think of what competition is. It's the ultimate transactional experience. By the end of the 3 hours, there's going to be a score up there, and there's going to be a winner and a loser. And if you're not careful, in the environment we have that's very transactional, we make that and amplify that, right? You're a winner and all the things that go with it. And you're a loser and all the things that go with it. And what gets left on the table unused and abandoned? The very abundance that can make competition actually worthwhile. Can find the best parts of it. 4 words I'm going to share with you. I don't know if long-suffering is one word. Is it one word? For today, it's one word. Gentle persuasion's 2 words. I know that's for sure, so I can't. So there's phrases I'm going to use. Long-suffering, gentle persuasion, meekness, and love. What happened to me is that I got into a series of really challenging situations that I couldn't figure out my way out of. Couldn't. And one of the answers from heaven that I got was these phrases or 4 ideals. And what came to me was, you don't need to do anything to fix this situation. You need to be things. Stop doing things. I can see that you're willing to do anything. I get that. I don't want you to do anything anymore. I want you to be something. I want you to be these words. I want you to find the language around these words. What would be the language? If I was going to be long-suffering, what would be the language that I would use in being that thing and that quality? And in finding that language, what happened is this ironic truth that in finding a way to be more selfless in my intent, suddenly I received all this truth pour in. And so for me, I don't care whether you're on the football field, at church, home, on the road. I don't care. What I describe to you is something that's not of this place and is perpetual. And if there is a perpetual place for my durable spirit, that's what governs it. And if that's what governs it, and that's what heaven seeks, then I'm for that. I'm in. But yet, here I am, still stuck in this transactional world. And I find myself, the other day I said something, what was it, my wife, I was describing something, she goes, Steve, that sounds super transactional. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. She's my guide, because she's the one that got me started on this. It was her reflexive love of LGBTQ people that got me started on how better to see the people around me and how to find that seeing in a more powerful way. And when you start to see others rather than just what they can do for you or what transaction you can kind of create in a sacred, maybe profitable way, there's something really beautiful and powerful. And so I find myself in these weird spots where I wrote a book. I told Laurel and Sherry at Desert Book I didn't want to put my name on it because it seemed weird. Because if there's a perpetual law in perpetual places in this universe, or in the universes in the world, and out in space, as you see the telescope came back with some pictures recently about like the depths and breadths of space. It's just amazing. If there is a perpetual law, then there's a perpetual place. I was in a conversation with an atheist friend of mine, dear friend. We got talking about these concepts, and I said, yeah, I know that this is not a perpetual place where we live. But what if in the universe there is one? Kind of scientifically, what if there was a perpetual law that allowed for perpetual experience? Wouldn't that be cool? He thought about it, and he goes, yeah, that would be cool. And I think that's what I'm proposing. I'm proposing a perpetual law for a perpetual place that's not of this place. And I know that by taking it in here, it becomes a very, very powerful change agent for me as a person, for those around me, and how I deal with other humans. There's a superpower in it. And I consistently find myself in more and more complex situations where I think this is where it breaks. I don't think this actually works everywhere. And then I'm proven wrong. I'm proven again that this is the headwaters. I always say the law of love is undefeated forever. And so I appreciate the chance to do these awkward meetings where I don't get a chance to speak with you. There's 4 or 5, maybe 10 people that I've walked in and rubbed shoulders with as I got to this stage who have said to me, Steve, thank you for this book. And I think to myself, you have no idea. I wrote it so that my kids could have it in their hand. You know, I didn't write it. I didn't know. I have no idea. I don't know where it goes from here. But I know for me, let me share this with you. I was on with LDS missionaries recently that are returned missionaries, and they're trying to find their next steps. And we had a meeting. I was speaking to them, and afterwards we asked some questions. And one of the fellows said, "Well, Steve, this is easy for you because." He didn't mean to offend me because you're on the other side of things. You know what I mean? Like, you've already accomplished a lot. What he's trying to say, you're super old, right? But you've already accomplished a lot. You've already done a lot, and you've already made your mark, and you have legacy. So this kind of stuff, yeah, of course you're thinking about this kind of stuff. You know, he didn't say it again, but what he meant is, it doesn't matter anymore. You're over the hill, you know. But I'm 22, and I don't know that I'm ever going to have a legacy. I don't know that I'm ever going to do anything special. I don't really think that I'm going to be able to see the things the way you do. And I thought to myself, you've completely missed my point. Because I think about legacy now so differently. My legacy is the healing that I can bring at work and on the road, at home. What can I do? How can I bring a healing spirit to others around me? And in that healing spirit, see them in a way that I never thought about. It's completely transformed my marriage. My marriage was great. My marriage was going to go for a long time. But I can actually see perpetuity in that relationship. I think we can see. And in that happens at home, it can happen everywhere. And so I am compelled, even though there's no compulsion in this higher law, I'm compelled to move forward and chat about it. And so in the 10 people that talked to me walking in, all I wanted to do was stop and talk to them about how are you feeling about it? How do you, I'm on the road with you. We're just fellow journeyers kind of walking along. And that's what I really want you to think about me. I'm just walking along with you. And this is my best effort to pay it forward. And so if you see me out in the street, anywhere, please let me know that we were together. And, you know, I don't know, we'll have a secret word like Reggie White. I'll do that, Reggie. I'll do Reggie. But please make sure that you say hello, because I'm really now seeing that, like I told this 22-year-old boy, young man, you can now find that legacy. Can you go find someone to heal? And if that's your legacy, you're actually going to be at it longer than I have had a chance to really think about it. And in that spirit, can you go and make a great life? And I think he was brightened to think that there wasn't this big weight of transaction coming for him to say, what have you done? What have you done with your life? You just have to be in a spirit of that intention. You can, who knows what we could do together or what we could do individually in changing people's lives. And in that way, he'll receive the full measure of his perpetual spirit. And we'll do it together. So that's the spirit of it. I wanted to leave a couple minutes for you to ask me questions, if you have any. I am... I'll be honest with you, I haven't spoken to this many people about this topic before, so I'm not sure how to do this. But if you have a question, I think you just scream it out, and something that's come to your mind. You can tell that I am ongoing working on this daily in all those aspects I just described to you. I am not a finished product. If you found out, hey, Steve, I saw you the other day and you seem super transactional, I'd be like, yeah, sorry about that. Working on that together, you know. So just trust me on that. We're kind of working together on how to move forward. But I want to open it up. Otherwise, we can just go to lunch. But anyone have a question for me that could be useful, thoughtful? Did I honk at the? Did I honk? It was a man at the light. I didn't honk. It was hard not to. I just waited the extra 3.5 seconds probably. And you know what? We left friends. Right? Now, if there was someone crossing the road and she was going to hit him, I would honk, right? Really loud. So anyway, I felt some peace in it. And I still got home on time. And so that one is a good story. There are plenty, and in the back of the book that you got given today, there's an email address to you to just, when you're done with the book, email me and tell me how you're feeling. And the emails that I've received are the knee buckling in their truth, and how people have taken it in, and how it's freed, the pain, and it's the promises of perpetual places. Is there'll be peace, and you won't have the pain and the agony and you can see that starting to happen. So yeah, any other questions? Yes.
For instance, this person at the light, to be able to create a story about something positive why they may be stopped, for instance, instead of saying, well, they're on their phone, right. I'm annoyed, I'm going to hit the thing, or I'm going to hit the horn, maybe changing that narrative to, I don't know.
Are you my wife? Because this is exactly what she would say, is like, your story was crap.
Yeah.
It's very transactional. And that's what I'm finally, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well,
yeah, because what you're saying is, what
that?
if I could get to where see, typical of me, finish your question.
So, okay. So the question, how have you found that changing the internal story has helped you connect better and have more empathy and compassion for others?
the depth of the joy of seeing others. And once you see the ironic nature of what I'm describing, in the selfless seeking, in other words, I was probably still transactional at the light a little bit. Like, it's hard to sift it out. But when you actually do leave yourself and you just see others and you start to now stand with them and you start to walk with them, you just carry what they have at the light, who knows what's going on there? That's where the spirit of the healing can start to happen. So my experience at the light is probably not a great one. My point is that even in really small, brief interactions, for example, one of the guys that wrote me a story in the email in the back of the book talked about how he was a janitor for an elementary school in an inner city. And they had a security guard that was a part of the daily experience. And so he would go in early, and he, I guess, every day saw the security guard and would be like, "Hey, Bill." And Bill would like, "Hey." And that's then he would go to his job and Bill would do his job. And then the security guard passed away over the years. And the wife of the security guard brought a letter to the janitor that he had written, that he wanted him to have. And he described the relationship, how important the relationship that they had was to him, to the security guard. That every day he could count on that cheery spirit of, "Hey." And the spirit that he brought every day buoyed him through some tough times. And he wanted him to know it. And here was a guy that did nothing but say, "Hey." And so to the same way, I wanted to describe to you that the experiences can be intimate to the relationship I have with my wife, my family, as it spreads outward, or it can be, and then how you describe it too is the breadth and depth of it. Once you make yourself available to it, you might find that there's a tragic thing that you can actually help with by seeing this person in front of you. So thank you for making that point and recognizing that my stories aren't even close to being perfect. But thank you for that, because it brought up because if nothing else today, can we be the hey people? Can we be the person who's like, "Hey"? That's the spirit of healing. Yeah.
Jordan or LeBron James, and I feel like we're finally in the era where I have my son here today where he says, "I want to be, the next Tom Brady," and you say, "No, I just want you to be the next Mac Osborne. I just want you to be the best version of yourself." And going back to, the 80s where I'm 45, and I watched what I thought was the greatest quarterback ever, which was Joe Montana, I
have years of therapy on that one. So,
as this young kid, and I see this guy come in 1988 against the Minnesota Vikings. I was 10 years old. I remember it like yesterday, and he just plays with so much grit and so much passion. And it's like, I don't care who Joe Montana is. Like, I'm Steve Young, and then later to go see you in your career and just become this best version of yourself. And it was just so powerful. And I guess statement, thank you for that charisma you play with, that heart, that guts, because it gave me what I needed as a young kid. And then secondly, like, how did you handle the pressure of being behind a Joe Montana? How did you become the best version of yourself and a Steve Young? And now so many kids want to be Steve Young, and it was just so powerful. So thank you.
Yeah, very kind of you. Thank you. Very kind. Well, I'm going to run out of time, but there's a long story of an interaction I had with Stephen Covey that changed my life around how good I can get and how to focus. If I'm going to be transactional, how can I use that transaction and find out how good I can get? And this is just another step forward from that iteration that I found in handling some of the pressure, some of the things that were overwhelming, some of the clinical depression. I mean, I'm sure I was. I didn't seek any help, but I'm sure all of that was a part of the drama that I was going through, and just needed a different way to look at it. I'm really grateful for angels along my path. I've had a lot. And I think we all hopefully have plenty that can be there to kind of redirect us when things are tough, especially. But maybe when things aren't so tough, to help you kind of guide you with fundamental principles, fundamental values, fundamental things that are going to, and people always say, okay, Steve, law of love, what do I do? It happens all the time, like, no, do. Be, right? It's an intent. It's an intent in the relationships and how you seek others, how you see them, and how you see yourself. And then how does that language change? There's transactional language. I hear it all the time. I hear it for myself. You can hear it a mile away once you focus on it. Doesn't mean it's bad. Just doesn't mean. Remember, Moses went up the mountain twice. God blessed both trips. But there was a higher, holier work to be done. And I suspect the places of perpetuity, this is it. Can I leave you with one other question? We'd have time for one other question. Yes. What? Yes, go ahead. You're all right. Oh, we wrote it down. We're in trouble.
Yeah. So the why is to help and seek others to help them heal. And I have a similar vision and curious, I want to learn the how. What's some of the most efficient hows to help them heal for you?
I would take fundamentally the way that I started on this path in these 4 power words of long-suffering, gentle persuasion, meekness, and love. And I would start to find the language for those states of being. And then watch your language. Watch interactions. Watch, just pay attention. And you'll catch yourself, like I do all the time, like, oh my gosh, I'm of this place again. How do I raise up? How do I get to a higher plane? Higher. That's a weird thing to say. How can I be more healing? How can I bring more peace? Is the idea. Can I tell you one last story? I'll leave this with you. I was speaking at an interdenominational conference that my church put on locally, where we had people from different churches come and talk about their experience, where they're from, what about unique about their religion, their faith, their spirituality, and it was really really wonderful. And I kind of moderated it. It was fun to be a part of that. And afterwards, a fellow came up to me and said, Steve, you know me? And I go, oh, great. He goes, yeah, I used to work where you were, 23 years ago, and we used to cross paths. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. And he goes, yeah, and then I'm going to say the rest of it, that's just as he said it. The next 15 seconds is exactly how he said it. He says, yeah, but then I got hooked on cocaine, and I was a drug addict for 20 years, and I lost all my relationships, and I lost my family, and I lost everything. And I inadvertently tried to kill myself 4 or 5 times. But then I found a drug rehabilitation program, and for 12 years I've been sober. He said it just like that. Can you imagine for 32 years that in 15 seconds and what that experience was like? And he says, but I'm 12 years sober, but I read your book, and I found out something that was super important to me, that now my experience, the full 32 years, have been alchemized to my benefit because I'm now an expert in this tragic things that I decided and I did. And I can't wait to pay it forward. I can't wait to find a place where I can be useful or helpful. And I was like, I don't know what to say, other than let's go there together, But we're in it together. We truly are in it together. And I have a spirit of that as I look out at you guys. Like, I have a feeling that almost every person in this room, we are 1 degree of separated, if not directly related. We have common friends and common experiences. And I want you to know how much it's meaningful to me for Casey, and Dave, and Kurt to allow me to come and spend a few minutes with you, because it's all I have to give to my kids is what I just described to you. This is the legacy, and I hope we can share that legacy going forward in a really profitable way. So much love to you, and let's eat.
See, it's a spiritual